Hello everybody, it's Dana. Welcome back to my channel, and we're starting a new project today that I'm very excited about. I've been sharing that I've been wanting to do some mini albums, and today we're going to start that process. And I decided to do a paper bag mini album because I love paper bag mini albums. I like kind of the rustic feel of them. I like that a lot of your pockets are kind of built in from the beginning. And there's a few different things that you can use. I'm using your regular old lunch bags, okay? These are a huge pack of 100 that I picked up at Walmart for a couple dollars. You can get smaller packages at Dollar Tree for $1. I think you can get like 25 or 50 of them for $1 at Dollar Tree. And you can also get kind of nicer ones at Michael's and Joann's, things like that, that aren't as, like, they're super flat. You don't see all these like wrinklies here. They don't have those. So if you're looking for kind of a more pristine look, you can buy those at Michael's. They're going to be more expensive, but hey, whatever you want to do, you do. Okay, so what we're going to tackle today is we're going to prep our bags. We're going to do our cover, and we're going to do our hidden hinge binding. And I'm also going to teach you how to figure out, if you want to do an album with a hidden hinge binding, how to figure out exactly how to do that for any size album that you want to do. So you can take those instructions, and no matter what size album or what size spine or anything that you want to do, you can use this method to figure out how to put your album together. Okay, so let me move some of this stuff out of the way, get these bags out of the way. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to prep our bags. Okay, so, and the way that's going to work is we're going to take each bag, and right here where the flap comes up, we're just going to glue that down on all our bags. That's all we're going to do first. Now I'm using, oops, came squirting out of there. I'm using art glitter glue through this process. If you are a score tape user and you would rather use score tape, actually I think I'm gonna straighten this bag out just a little bit before I glue it down. It's a little off. There we go. Where did my bone folder go? I just had it in my hand. Okay, I'm sure you guys saw what I did with it. What the heck did I do with my, oh, there it is. So I'm just gonna straighten this bag out a little before because it was a little off. Like the sides of the pocket weren't matching up. Now, if you like to use score tape, you can certainly do that. I don't have any score tape, so I'm using wet glue. It is my preferred adhesive, but adhesive is one of those things, it's a personal choice. So whatever you would like to use for your adhesive, you just do that. And you can do that throughout this process. It is not a big deal. I will, sorry, there is a fly buzzing around here and it's driving me nuts. I like art glitter glue, and I'll tell you why. I was one of the craft groups that I belong to. Somebody had said, hey, you know, like, what's the big deal about art glitter glue? For me, I like art glitter glue, one, because it grabs really fast. I know there's another brand out there called Reptile Glue that does the same thing, but I have not tried that. So, but I know lots of people are a fan of it, and that it has a fast grab like art glitter glue. So it dries, well, it grabs quickly. So that's one reason. Another reason, oh, and I forgot to tell you, we're starting with 5 bags, okay? Another reason I really like our glitter glue is because of the fine tip and the makeup of the glue, it does not warp my paper ever. You never get too much that it's gonna warp your paper because of the consistency of the glue and the fine tip applicator. Okay, now what we're going to do is take our bags, and right here where we glued that flap down, we're gonna fold up, and we're gonna line up the sides as best as we can because paper bags are not perfect. And we're gonna burnish that down, okay? So that's our next step. We're just gonna fold up and burnish that down. So today we're gonna be, in this album, we're going to be utilizing our bags in the vertical orientation. And I think I'm gonna design another one where we use them in the horizontal orientation. So we're just folding those up. One more to go. All right, now what we're going to do, we're not gluing these down yet, okay? I'll show you why in a minute. Now I'm gonna bring in my trimmer, and what we're going to do is we're gonna trim our bags, and I'm gonna lay it down this way, just because I have a more flat surface this way. That's all. My pocket's not sticking up. We're gonna trim these at 7 inches. Okay, so make sure that it's straight in your trimmer, and we're gonna just trim that off at 7 inches. So that's what we have. Okay, and do that to all your bags. We're also going to be creating a chipboard cover for this album. We will not be utilizing bags for the cover. So again, we're going to trim off at 7 inches. Okay, and last one. Oops. Moved my paper. I want to make sure that I get that line straight. All right. So now we have all of our bags folded and trimmed to 7 inches. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you one that I'm working on. It is far from being finished, but I'm going to show you what we're going to do with our bags and how we're going to alter them to create some interesting flaps and such. So this is one that I'm working on right now. This was my prototype. So this is what I did all my measurements on to make sure that it worked out and all of that stuff. So I'm in the midst of finishing this one up. But this is how our page is going to lay out. So this is our bag. I used white ones in this one. And so here's our bag, okay? So we're going to put, this is going to create a pocket, and then we have a flap here. Now you can put pictures on, journal on, whatever. And then we have our opening at the top. We have our pocket at the top. And then when you turn the page, we have a flap here that opens up like this. So you've got lots of room for photos here, and this flap I designed and measured out so that when it's matted, okay, so this mat right here is 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. So you can fit an entire 4 by 6 photo here without cropping it on both sides. Okay, so I did that on purpose so that we could put a pretty mat on it, but it also still be the size that you don't have to crop your 4 by 6 photo. So that is how each of our pages is going to lay out. Okay, so what I want to do is go ahead and create the flaps that are going to go here, and we'll do that now. Okay, So what you're gonna need is 5 each of the things that we're gonna cut out because we have 5 bags. So 5 pages basically. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm using craft colored cardstock. This is a nice weight. I really like this cardstock. I get it at Michael's. This is the package. And it's just craft. And it's where on their aisle with all of the cardstock and paper pads, things like that. They have all the packages of solid colors, and this is the craft color. And this is much thicker than their other colors for whatever reason. Okay, so first what we're going to need is 5. Let's do our, because you can get 2 out of here. So we're gonna put it up vertically in our trimmer, and we're gonna cut at 6.5. This is gonna be our big photo mat. I mean our flap that holds the photo. So we're gonna go 6.5, and then by 5. Okay. So there's 1, 2, and we need 5 of them. So 6.5. And then by 5. And then by 5 again. Okay, so we could get 2 out of each 8.5 by 11 there. So what I'm going to do for this last piece, because I only need 1 more, I'm just going to cut this at 5. So I have this whole section left to do some of our other flaps. It just saves paper. And then we'll go 6.5 on this one. All right, so we have our 5 flaps that are 6.5 by 5. Okay. Now we need 5 other flaps that are 4 by 3.25. Okay. So let's go on this scrap. We'll go 4. And then by 3.25. Looks like I'm only going to get 2 out of there. That's okay. Let me just grab another piece of paper because those were my last 3 sheets from that pack. So I had to open a new pack before I started the video. Oh gosh, it's tight. There we go. Okay, so we're doing, I'm going to go 3.25 this way, because I'll be able to get 2 out of this because we're doing 4, and that's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So that's by 4 and then by 4 again. All right, and then I just need 1 more. So I'm gonna go, I think to save the most paper, I'm gonna go 3.25 and then by 4. All right, now don't get rid of these scraps. These scraps are very usable. In fact, this big one here we'll use for a pocket. Never get rid of these. Are very usable scraps. I stamp on these for cards and all kinds of stuff. So they're great for hinges when you're adding things to journals, things like that. So don't get rid of those. Okay, so now we've got 5 flaps that are 4 by 3.25, and then we have 5 flaps that are 6.5 by 5. Now we're going to grab our scoreboard. I'm just going to use my little mini scoreboard here because it's handy, and I think these will fit in here. Yeah, they will. Okay, so we're going to start with our big photo mats, and what we're going to do with the 5-inch side up here at the top, we're going to score over here on the left-hand side at 1/2 inch. And you'll do that for all of them. Again, with our 5-inch side at the top, we'll score at 1/2 inch. I was so excited to get working on a mini album. I haven't made a mini album in a really long time. I've been doing a lot of journals, kind of at the expense of all the other crafts I like to do. So, okay, so now we have our 4 by 3 1/4, okay? And we're gonna turn this to where the 3 1/4 inch side is at the top of our scoreboard. And we're gonna, again, score at 1/2 inch, okay, to all 5. Okay, again, with our 3 1/4 inch side at the top. We'll give these a quick score. All right, now we're done with our scoreboard. Let's fold and burnish on all of our score lines. I hope y'all are excited about this, and I hope that you're following along with me. This is very easy, and because I made the spine and the hidden, gosh, what is that called? Hidden hinge the way I did, there is a ton of room in this. I like to embellish my mini albums, sometimes with more chunkier items. And so I've designed this one to where there's going to be plenty of room to add nice chunky embellishments in it. And which, you know, I just love. Flowers and paper clips and things that are chunkier. And there's going to be plenty of room to do that in this one. All right, last one. All right, now we've got our photo mats, and then we've got our little flaps here. Okay, so let's bring our bags in. Okay, and what we're gonna do is this big photo mat is going to go on the flat side here, okay? So it's going to slip right underneath this opening here. And we're going to just glue that in, just like that, okay? You don't even need to miter the corners on these. So it's as easy as that. But what I think I'm going to do, and what I really liked the look of on the one that I was working on, is I rounded my corners of my flaps, and I just like that look. You can, if you have a decorative corner punch, you could use that, or you could, if you don't have any and you want to just leave them square, or you like the look of them square, just do that, whatever you want to do. So opposite of my fold line, my and I'm going to use my 1/4 inch side of my quarter rounder. I'm just going to round these corners before I glue them in, because it'll be harder to do once they're glued into the book. Okay. But again, whatever it is that you like, you do, okay? This is just what I like. And I'm going to do the same thing on these smaller ones. I'm going to round the opposite corners of my scored line. So I'm getting to use some of my new fall paper that I got at Michael's, and decided to do the white bags on that other book on my prototype because of that, that one that I got that was fall themed, but it was like blues, golds, and whites. Super interesting combination for a fall paper collection. I really liked that one. Okay, now we can glue in. So let's grab our bags, okay? And this flap is gonna go right here on our pocket, and we have not glued our pockets down yet. Do not do that yet. This was a mistake I made on my prototype. It's why you do a prototype. Okay, so I'm gonna put glue on the inside of my little hinge here. And I don't want to get up into my score line, so steer clear of it. Then I'm gonna center this as best as I can on my pocket. I'm gonna kind of fold it over, and I'm gonna press up against the side here and get some good contact there. And there we go, we've got our flap in, okay? And then I'm gonna take my bigger one, I'm gonna flip this over. I'll tell you, we're not gonna glue this pocket down until we've matted behind here. Because of the way these pockets are on these paper bags, it's easier to mat this with your designer paper before gluing your pocket down. So that's why we haven't glued that down yet. Okay, so we're gonna turn our bag over. Again, we're going to put glue on the inside, right here, on our flap. And we don't want glue up in our score line, so don't get it into your score line. Get close to it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gluing it inside this gusset, okay? And I wanna center my flap as best as I can from top to bottom. And when you place your flap down, you wanna come right up to the score line. Do not cross it, okay? Because if you cross it, it won't fold nicely. So now since I came right up to it, it'll lay nice and flat. Okay, so that's our first page. So let's go ahead and get the other ones done. So that's number 1. And I'll just chat with y'all here while I do this. So I hope y'all are doing good. We're okay around here. It's been kind of rough these last few months for us. I've shared a little bit what has been going on with my family, and not too much, but I just, you know, it's been rough, but it looks like things are finally calming down a little bit. And I did get my new phone so that I don't have to pay too much attention to the time now. So because I know this video is going to go way over 33 minutes, which was where my other phone would cut off my video. And so I was testing it out the other night on my last video that I posted, that Goodwill haul, that I had to do 2 videos on that. I actually, one of the functions that this phone does not have, very nice, that I'm really missing on my other one is that it doesn't have a pause feature while you're recording. So in my other videos using my Android phone, if my dog started growling or somebody came knocking at my door or anything happened, I was able to, I'm just gonna flatten this out just a little, it's kind of curving a little. If anything happened, I could just pause my recording. And, okay, that's not quite centered, but that's okay. I'm not gonna rip it up. So anyway, I would just pause my recording if something happened, like with my dogs or one of my daughters needed to talk to me or whatever. And then when whatever was going on had passed, I would just hit record again, and you know, it was fine. Well, I guess the iPhones don't have that function, which surprised the heck out of me. Like, that seems like it would be kind of like a normal function of a like recording video. And so I can't pause this recording. So my first take of my Goodwill haul video, my dogs, you know, and if you've followed my channel for any amount of time, you know that my dogs jockey for position under my craft table when I'm sitting here. And a lot of times in my videos, you can hear them growling at each other. Well, I went to do my Goodwill haul video, and I was recording, and it was the first one that I was doing on my new iPhone. And they started growling at each other, and I was telling them to stop, and they started to kind of escalate a little bit. So I finally stood up to pause my video, and I couldn't find the pause feature. So I couldn't pause the video, and they got in an all-out fight. Like, they were going at it. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, that hasn't happened in a really long time. And so I ended up having to completely start my video over because it was ruined and I couldn't pause it. So I'm really missing that function. So if you have an iPhone and you have some tips for me about that, please share them in the comment section below, because man, I'm telling you, I'm missing that function on my Android phone when recording videos. It's kind of like nothing's perfect, you know, like my Android phone would only do 4 gigs of recording at one time, so I could only get 33 minutes in at once without it starting a completely different video. And so I switched to an iPhone so I can film for as long as I want to, but now I can't pause it. So it's like nothing's perfect. It's like, hello. So if you have any tips on that, or am I not seeing that function on the iPhone? I've never owned an iPhone before. This is my first time. I've always had Android phones. So I'm totally new to this. So if that function is there and I'm just not seeing it, please let me know, because I had to like lock up Boss because I was doing a video. So I put him in with my mother, and just so that I didn't have them like, you know, freaking out and I can't pause my video. So like I'm having to like prep the house and told everybody I'm filming a video, don't interrupt me because I can't pause it. So whereas I just never worried about that before, because if something happened, I would just pause my video, pause the recording. So anyway, so hopefully there's a fix to that. I'm hoping, because like you would think that that would be kind of a standard built-in option of something that you could do. Okay, we have our pages prepped. Okay, so the only thing that we need to do is we'll mat them with our pretty papers, right? And then we'll glue our pockets, and we'll do all of that tomorrow. Okay, what I really want to do today was get these kind of prepped with the bases of everything and the flaps on them. And then I want to wrap the cover and work on, show you how the hidden hinge binding works. Okay, so I've cut myself out of medium weight chipboard. Okay, so I just happen to have medium weight chipboard. I ordered one from Amazon for a pack of it for a project that I was doing that I really want. Normally I will use like cereal boxes and stuff like that, and I'll glue them together just because those are free. But I had this on hand because I had bought it for another project that I actually needed medium weight chipboard for. And I couldn't really substitute with lighter weight chipboard. So I'm just using this. If you want to glue 2 layers of like cereal box together or something like that, I've made a ton of mini albums that way. You can do that too. What I would suggest though is that you go ahead and glue your layers together before you cut them to size. Okay, that way they're at the exact same size. Okay, so what I have is I've got, let me just mark this on here. Okay, I've got 2 pieces that are 5.5 by 7.5 tall. And then this one is 3 inches wide and 7.5 inches tall. Okay, this back piece is the same size as this one, okay? So those are gonna be our covers and our spine, okay? And what we're gonna do is take 2 pieces of our Craft 8.5 by 11 cardstock. Let's just set these aside here. And we need to put these together. Again, I'm using liquid glue. If you like to use score tape, do that. That works well too. So I'm just gonna run a line of glue. I got a glue goober. Yeah, come on. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna run a line of glue right on the edge of my paper here. And I'm just gonna attach these 2 together. Being very careful to just line them up straight. Just like that. Okay. Just gonna burnish those down. Make sure we get good contact. Okay. Now I always use my really long grid ruler here to help me out when I'm doing covers. Okay. So I'm just gonna line my ruler up, and I'm gonna start with my spine. So our 3" by 7.5" piece, okay? I'm gonna put glue all over the back of it. Okay. And I'm gonna hold my grid ruler in place, and this center seam here marks the center. I'm just gonna center my spine piece right on my seam line there. Then I'm gonna hold it down so it doesn't move, and I'm gonna burnish it in place. Okay. Making sure we've got good contact everywhere. All right. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my grid ruler, and I'm gonna pick any mark. So I'm gonna use this 8" mark right here. You can pick any mark, it does not matter. So I'm lining up the edge of my spine piece with this 8" mark that I've picked, okay? I'm switching to Fabri-Tac, and the reason why I'm doing that is art glitter glue dries really fast, okay? It grabs really fast, it dries really fast. These pieces of chipboard are bigger, and I don't want my glue to dry before I have a chance to tack it down, okay? So I'm just gonna use Fabri-Tac. And I'm gonna glue my cover down. So Fabri-Tac grabs pretty quickly, but it does give you a little more wiggle room than art glitter glue does on like when you've got a bigger surface area that you're trying to glue down. All right. Now I'm gonna hold my grid ruler in place, and I know that I'm straight because I've got it butted up against my spine piece here. And I'm gonna go 1/8 inch over from my spine. So my next hash mark on my ruler here is 1/8 inch. So I'm lining up this cover piece with that 1/8 inch mark. I'm gonna hold it down and burnish. So we know we've got the right width in between our chipboard pieces, and we know they're straight because we had them butted up. We've got a ruler butted up against the bottom there. Okay. Just gonna go to the other side and burnish this down. All right. Okay, and then we'll do our other cover. So I'm gonna just come over here, I'm butting my ruler back up against the bottom of the chipboard here, I'm going to pick a mark, just any mark. So I'm going to just choose the 6 inches right here. And when I lay my piece down, I'm going to go to this 1/8 inch mark that's next to my 6 inch mark. And that's where I'm going to lay my piece down. Okay. Another use for your grid rulers. I've been doing mini albums for many years, and it's a method that was taught to me a long time ago, doing it this way, and I've always used it because it just never fails me. I use my big grid ruler, and so I always get my covers on straight, and I always have the right gap in between because I'm using the measurement. Okay, so I'm butting these up, and I'm going to put this down right where that 1/8 inch mark is, right there, making sure that it's butted up against the bottom of my ruler here so I'm straight, and then I'm just going to burnish. Now that ensures that our covers are on straight and they have equal spacing in between the gaps. All right, now I'm done with my ruler. Get that out of the way. Turn this over and burnish it. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, and I don't know what my girls have done with my big old rule, my scissors, so I'll just have to use my small ones. We've got a little more on this side than this side, and it's just, for me, I'm just gonna cut it off because you can leave it. It's not gonna hurt you to leave it. I just, like, for me, the less paper that I have to work with, it just makes it easier. So I'm just gonna trim that strip off. Okay, so now we're gonna miter our corners so that we can wrap our cover, okay? So what I'm gonna do is do not cut too close to this corner. You wanna leave some paper there, okay? I've got maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. Because I want to make sure that my chipboard covers my corner. And if you cut too close to it, you're going to see that chipboard underneath. Okay? All right, now what we're going to do is train our paper, okay? And because these are going to wrap over the sides. You guys have seen me do this before, but if there's anybody watching who has not seen this done, I'll go through all the steps here since we've got to sit and do it anyway. I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to run my bone folder up against the edge of my chipboard all the way around. Okay, and this cardboard, this cardstock is on the thicker side, so I'm just making more than one pass, just so I can make sure that I get a good score. Okay, we want to train our paper where we want our paper to go before we put glue on it. It's very important. You'll just get a neater, bend that way, and your whole project will just look better. Okay, so now that we've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the edge of my bone folder and I'm just going to lift my paper up, and all I'm doing is running my bone folder up against that chipboard and then over on my paper, just like that. So I just trained my paper where I want it to land once I put glue on it. See, that's much easier. Okay, I'll flip it over and do the other short side. You don't have to do it this way. You can do the sides in whatever order you want. It's just my way of doing things. Okay. Now on these long sides, I'm going to lift up from the middle, and I'm going to start at the middle, okay? It just makes it a little bit easier, just because you're dealing with such a long piece of paper. Okay. And now the last side, lift up from the middle, start there, just fold it over. There we go. Now we're ready for glue. Okay. I think I'm going to use Art Glitter Glue here on my short sides and Fabri-Tac on my long sides. You know what? I could just use Fabri-Tac on all the sides. It doesn't matter. Just these long pieces are so long. So what I'm first going to do when I start with my glue, I'm going to run glue right up against the edge of this chipboard. Okay? We want glue there. So when we fold our paper over, it's going to adhere to the side of our chipboard. Okay, we want glue right up against that chipboard. Okay. And I'm doing this not the way I normally do. Normally I do my long pieces first. Oh well. Okay, so see how easy that was to glue down because we trained our paper ahead of time? All right. Let me go ahead and do my other short side since I started with short sides. So first place that it's going to go, right up against the chipboard. And then on the rest of the flap. Super easy. Train that paper first and you won't have an issue. All right. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to run my bone folder kind of right here, and I'm going to tuck this corner in, this overlap right here. That way when we wrap this side, our covers are nice and clean. Our corners are nice and clean. So up against the chipboard first. And then all over the flap. Okay. I'm going to press in with the middle first. And then I'm just going to smooth out. And see, by tucking those corners in, by mitering those corners, and then tucking, we get this nice, clean, wrapped corner. Okay, perfect. All right, let's do the other side. Okay, so we're just going to tuck our corner first. And then glue up against the chipboard. And then all around our flap. All right. Much, much easier if you've trained your paper. Okay, get that all glued down here to where it's stuck. Now, plug up my glue here for a second. I'm going to set this aside to dry before I bend it. Okay? I don't want to come in here and crease. If it was Art Glitter Glue, I would, because it'd probably already be dry, but it's Fabri-Tac. So I don't want to bend quite yet on my spines here, because I want to make sure my glue is completely dry. Okay, so let's work on our hidden hinge. And I want to teach you guys how to figure out just how it works, how to figure out with a hidden hinge. Okay, if you don't know what a hidden hinge is, okay, it's what our pages are gonna adhere to. Okay, we need to be able to put our pages in somehow. So basically we're creating these little like flaps that are about 1/2 inch big that I used the open side of our paper bag. Where are our paper bags that were, here we go. So this side of our paper bag is gonna sit on that hinge and it's gonna get glued in here. All right, so what I decided to do in this album, let me get a piece of paper. Maybe that's a little bit bigger so I can explain this. Okay, so we know that we have 5 pages, okay? Doesn't matter how many pages you have, just make a note of how many pages you have, okay? And I decided to make each of my hinges 1/2 inch tall, 1/2 inch wide, I mean. Now, for a hinge has, in this particular method, the hidden hinge method, the hinge has 2 sides to it, okay? So our hinge is actually going to be, we need 1 inch of space for our hinge. So if this is hinge, I'm gonna draw 5 hinges because I have 5 pages, okay? And I know that each hinge is going to be 1 inch of paper because it's it's an inch of paper scored in the middle and folded in on itself and glued together to make a nice strong hinge, okay? So each of these hinges is gonna be 1 inch of paper, okay? And we're doing this so we know how long to make our piece of paper for our hidden hinge, okay? And where to score it, okay? So each of our hinges is 1 inch of paper, okay? Now, each of these gaps in between, you can make these gaps any size you want, okay? I made mine 1/2 inch, okay? Therefore, we have all this room to put chunky embellishments in. So I put 1/2 inch in between each of my hinges, okay? So we have 1/2 inch. And that includes before our first page and after our last page. So we have 1/2 inch here, okay? Now, you can see here, I've put my hidden hinge system in here already, okay? You need a little extra paper to come over the gap in your spine, okay? Because it needs to attach to your cover piece. So for stability, this is super sturdy, okay? So I add an extra inch, okay? On top of this 1/2 inch gap, we now have another inch on each side, okay? So what I have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whole inches, and then each 1/2 inch gap makes up. So we have 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10 inches of paper, okay? So we need a 10 inch wide piece of paper for our hidden hinge binding, okay? And we know that our cover is 7.5 inches tall, okay? So I cut mine, and this measures in our bag, we cut our bag 7 inches tall, right? Remember our bag? And this has to sit on the hinge, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this at 7 inches tall, but I'm gonna back it up just a little. So I'll probably do like 6 and 15/16, okay? Which sounds complicated, but you just go to your 7 inches on your cutter and you just back it up 1 hash mark. No big deal, okay? So that's how you figure out how much you need, okay? So here's how we know what we need for our piece of paper. We want 7 inches tall by 10 inches wide, and that's going to be enough room for us to score and do our hidden hinge binding, okay? But how do you know what size you want to make your spine, okay? Well, I figured this out first. So what I know from this is that I've got 5 hinges, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I have 5 pages, okay? And so this is, because our hinges are going to be up and not taking up any space, okay? We don't want to count our actual hinges when figuring out how big to make our spine, because our hinges aren't taking up any space because they're folded in and glued together and just sticking up. They're just like a piece of paper sticking up. So when looking at how big to make your spine, you're looking at what you have in your gaps, okay? So we have 1/2 inch, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, okay? So that's why I did a 3-inch spine, okay? Because I wanted 1/2 inch gaps in between my pages, and I have 5 pages. Okay, so I wanted room for chunky embellishments. So because we have our 5 pages and I've got 1/2 inch in between those pages and before the first page and after the last page, that's my 3 inches right there. And that's how I figured out what size spine I needed to make. So anytime you're doing and trying to figure out how big your spine needs to be, just start with how many pages do I have and what gap do I want in between those pages? How much room do I want to leave? I've done mini albums where I've only left a 1/4 inch space in between because all I was doing was matting the paper. I wasn't hardly embellishing them at all. It was mostly just going to be photos. So I've had mini albums where I didn't have 1/2 inch gap in between my pages. I only had 1/4 inch because I knew I wasn't going to heavily embellish them. So you just do your little formula here and you figure out, oh, well, then I need a 2-inch spine, or I need this, that, or the other. Okay, so that's the method on how you figure out how to do, how big your spine should be and how to do your hidden hinges. Okay, so I hope all of that made sense. So let's grab our paper cutter. And I need a paper that is 7 inches tall by 10 inches wide. So we're gonna go 7. And I'm gonna back it up 1 tiny little hash mark so that my height of my hinge is not the exact height of my page. That way we have a little bit of wiggle room in order to get our page onto our hinge, okay? And then I need 10 inches wide. All right, now we need our scoreboard, and I'm gonna stand up here for a second and get my big scoreboard because that's what's gonna work best. Okay, so let me grab my big scoreboard here and we'll score this, and then I think we'll leave things there and pick up in our next video because we're at almost an hour here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna bring back in my diagram. Okay, our first score mark is going to be at 1.5. Okay, we're not going to score at 1/2 inch here, okay, because this is this area right here, this 1.5 inch space right here before our first hinge starts. Okay, so we're going to start at 1.5. That's where our first score line is going to be, 1.5. And then we're gonna score every 1/2 inch because my hinge is 1/2 inches tall, a 1/2 inch tall, and my gap is 1/2 inch wide. So we're gonna score every 1/2 inch until we get to the 8.5 inch mark, okay? because that'll give us 1.5 inches on this side and 1.5 inches on this side. I didn't get quite, I jumped my score line right here and here. Jeez, not paying attention. I'm trying to rush. Okay, so I'm scoring every 1/2 inch until I get to the 8.5 inch mark. Oh, I jumped my score line again. This craft paper is fairly thick, so I need to go maybe a little bit slower. Okay, here's my 8-inch mark. And we know this works because we did all our calculations ahead of time. Okay. Okay, now I've got 1.5 inches on this side and 1.5 inches on this side, and then I've got score lines at every 1/2 inch in between. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold on all these score lines. All right, and the way I do this, let me see if you can see these. Okay, so you can see those. Now, this here, if you take 3 score lines, right? 1, 2, 3. The middle one is the top of our hinge. So I'm gonna fold on that one, okay? Then I'm gonna fold this back. And then I'm just gonna kind of fold this like this, just standing my hinge up, okay? So there's our first hinge right there, okay? So now I'm gonna go to the next, here's my gap. The next 3 score lines, I'm gonna fold on the middle one, okay? This is just the way I find it easiest to fold all my hinges up, okay? And then I'm just basically kind of gonna press. I'm gonna hold my hinge, and then I'm just gonna press on those other score lines, okay? So there's our second hinge. Now I go to the next 3 score lines and fold on the middle one. And I'm gonna grab that hinge in between the score lines, and then I'm just gonna kind of stand my paper up and fold over on those other score lines. So there's our third hinge. Let's go to our next 3 score lines, fold on the middle one. And then just kind of create my hinge. And then here's our last page. Fold on that middle one. I mean our last hinge. Stand that hinge up. All right. And there we have 5 hinges that are 1/2 inch tall with a 1/2 inch gap in between. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take my glue and I'm gonna go in between each of these hinges. I'm gonna pull them apart a little and I'm gonna glue them together. Okay, just like that. Okay, take our next one. Put glue in the middle. And glue it together. Okay, so get up to this point if you're following along with me. And we'll be back tomorrow. And we're going to install this into our cover. Pick out our designer paper. We're gonna start cutting all our mats. We're gonna start putting our album together. So some people do have their own processes for mini albums. I personally like to mat all my pages before I install them on my hinge, okay? I just find it easier. I can get my mats in better when I'm not fiddling with a page that's already attached inside of a book, okay? So what I'm gonna do is pick out my paper pad that I wanna use on this album. Actually, I already know which one it is, and I'll show you that tomorrow. And we'll cut all our mats. We'll install our hinge into our cover. Oh, let's do this really quick here. So this is gonna sit right here, centered on our spine, just like that. We'll install that tomorrow because the video is getting kind of long. We'll start matting our pages and we'll get our pages installed tomorrow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I encourage you to follow along, make your own with me. And I hope y'all have a wonderful day. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video tomorrow. Bye-bye.